The last race, a story of overcoming. Lucas had always been passionate about running. Since childhood, he had glided through the streets of his neighborhood as if the wind carried him. His parents, always busy with work, rarely noticed his achievements. But his younger sister, Mariana, was always there, cheering for him at every finish line. He had big dreams, to compete, to win, to take his family to a better life. And he was on the right path. At just 18, he was one of the most promising young athletes in track and field. Until one rainy night changed everything. A motorcycle accident, a deafening crash, the impact, the world spinning, and then silence. When Lucas woke up in a hospital, the pain was unbearable, but nothing compared to what a doctor said. Your knee was severely damaged. You will never compete again. It felt like his life had been ripped away from him. He spent days in silence, staring at the ceiling, lost in darkness. Mariana sat beside his bed, drawing endlessly, the same image repeated on every piece of paper. Lucas running, crossing the finish line with a smile. "Stop it, Mariana. That's not going to happen." She didn't respond. She just pushed one of the drawings toward him and left the room. The following months were a battle. While the doctors insisted he needed to accept his new reality, Mariana insisted that he at least try. "You can still run," she said, but Lucas was drowning in frustration. He tried walking without crutches and fell. He tried taking a stronger step and screamed in pain. Every failure seemed to confirm what the doctors had told him. That's when Mariana made a decision. If Lucas didn't believe in himself, she would find someone who did. She knocked on the door of an old warehouse, home to Carlos, a legendary coach who had retired years ago. He had trained champions, but after losing one of his best athletes to a tragic accident, he had sworn never to coach again. When he saw the little girl standing there, insisting, with her eyes full of hope, his first reaction was to close the door. "I don't do this anymore." But Mariana didn't give up. She held out her phone, showing him a video of Lucas before the accident, running with passion and determination. Carlos watched in silence. When the video ended, he sighed. "Bring your brother here." The next day, Lucas arrived at the warehouse, leaning on his crutches, reluctant. "This is a waste of time," he muttered. Carlos studied him for a few seconds before speaking. "If you want to quit now, you can walk away. But if even a small part of the Lucas I saw in that video is still in there, then stay. Just know that I don't go easy." Lucas hesitated. Then he looked at Mariana, who squeezed his hand. Something inside him stirred. Training began, and the pain was unbearable. Carlos pushed him to his limits without mercy. Lucas tried to run and fell. He tried to accelerate, and his muscles failed him. Every night, he returned home exhausted, convinced he would never make it. But Mariana was always there, with water, with a smile, with a new drawing. "You're getting better," she'd say. He didn't see progress, but something changed within him. He started believing, even if just a little. He learned to accept the falls, to get up faster. He learned to endure pain and keep going. Carlos, once rigid, began to see something in him. Lucas wasn't just a promising athlete. He was a warrior. Finally, race day arrived. The stadium was packed. Curious stares, some of pity, others of disbelief. "He shouldn't be here," someone murmured. Lucas felt the weight of judgment, but then he saw Mariana in the stands, holding up one of her drawings. She raised it high so he could see. Lucas crossing the finish line. The starting gun fired. Lucas started slowly. His knee ached with every step, and fear crept in. He wasn't the same runner he used to be. But then, a voice rang out from the crowd. "Lucas." It was Mariana. He closed his eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and kept going. His pace increased. His body screamed at him to stop, but he refused to give in. Carlos, watching from the sidelines, murmured to himself, "That's it, kid. You've already won." The final meters felt infinite. Every second stretched on forever. He wasn't competing against the other runners. He was competing against himself. And then he crossed the finish line. He collapsed to the ground, tears streaming down his face. Mariana ran to him, hugging him tightly. Carlos stepped forward, his eyes filled with emotion. You did it, champion. Mariana smiled and held up the drawing, now crumpled. The wind picked up, carrying the paper away. And for the first time since the accident, Lucas allowed himself to smile. Because sometimes, winning isn't about coming in first. Winning is simply not giving up.